Welcome everyone. English has attained a global importance and learning English is a high-time task for the second language learners. Let's study about teaching English as a second language. Language is a means of communicating thoughts and feelings. Though it is not the only means, cries, signs, gestures, pictorial representation, etc. also serve as a means of communication. Animals also communicate with one another, though not by speech, but by body movements or facial expressions or vocal signals. The mating calls of animals and the warning calls of birds are also means of communication. The human language is a signaling system which uses vocal cords and is based on man's ability to speak. The written language is derivative and secondary. The written language is derived from the spoken language and it is the basis of speech. As Dwight Bollinger says, language is species specific. It is a uniquely human trait. Language is one of the most important characteristic forms of human behavior. It is the man's ability to use language for purposes of communication distinguishes him from other animals. Though man has many achievements to his credit like science and technology, the exploration and the civilization and the communication system, the achievement of his ability to use language is the supreme achievement in the world. Man is often referred to as Homo sapiens because of his capability of thinking and of wisdom. Language differs from other modes of communication and it is a system. This aspect is explained by Edward Safire in his Language and Introduction to the Study of Speech, where he says, language is a purely human and non-instinctive method of communicating ideas, emotions, and desires by means of a system of voluntarily produced symbols. Hence, according to Safire, the involuntary sounds that are made by the animals are not considered as language like the voluntary sounds made by human beings. The capacity to speak is the chief characteristic of the human race and it is also the unique characteristic of the human beings. According to Hockett, human language has 7 characteristics which are not shared by any other communicative system and this fact makes it unique. The 7 characteristics are duality, productivity, arbitrariness, interchangeability, specialization, displacement, and cultural transmission. A language structure has phonemes and morphemes, thus making it a dual in a system of significant units. It is these structural elements that make the human beings or the speaker to produce new utterances. Language is arbitrary, which has no inherent or necessary relationship between any given feature of a language and its meaning. Interchangeability means that language as a system can both send and receive messages. Specialization denotes that the human language is a special system and it has its own framework of structure and meaning that is suitable for conveying the messages within a framework. Displacement means that human language can be used both denotatively and connotatively, that is extensionally and intentionally. The cultural transmission refers to the fact that human language is transmitted from one individual to another not by physical inheritance but by learning. Of the 7 characteristics, the 2 fundamental ones are productivity and duality. The highly structured system of language enables us to communicate our thoughts in a variety of ways. Language as a means of communication helps a person to formulate his thought and encode it for the benefit of others who receive it. Getting to know about the importance of communication, let us go on to see about teaching or learning English as a second language. There are varieties of English globally, regionally, historically, geographically, and socially. Of all the global varieties of English, American English and British English are the principal ones. So perhaps having the differences between the two are highly exaggerated at the expense of overwhelming similarity and underlying unity between the two forms of English. According to the cultural setup, English is learned as a second language in India because of its importance. Due to the colonization of the Britishers in India, English is served as an administrative language here. Being the administrative language, there is a necessity to learn the language as a second one. Learning the second language is not just to catch up with the structure of the native speakers, but the aim of learning a second language like English is to achieve the same linguistic competence that the native speaker of the language possesses. Merely using the linguistic forms correctly will not do in learning English as a second language. The different varieties of English are called dialects. Dialects are differentiated on the basis of grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and speech habits. Though there are different dialects, there is a standard English which is used throughout the world. The standard English is accepted as a legitimate, unique, and a standard way of dialect that can be used for both communication and written language. It can be used for international communication. Standard English is basically an ideal, a mode of expression that we seek when we wish to communicate beyond a community with English speakers as a whole. The basis of this standard English is the high degree of anonymity, the small amount of divergence. That is to say, intelligibility and acceptability both are in spoken and written English. So, as English teachers, if we try to teach all the refinements of pronunciation, intonation, stress, etc. thoroughly, we will end up in teaching nothing. To achieve success, our objectives should be limited. Our attempt while teaching English as a second language must be to find out how international intelligibility and acceptability suffer on the interference of regional languages and their pressures on the Indian learners of English, and to eliminate these pressures to the extent possible. Intelligibility, both in spoken and written English, is the very first requirement. Though the speakers have an excellent understanding and command of syntax and lexis of the language, they may not have a command of the phonology of the language. Since the phonological system is the smallest of the three systems, an earnest attempt can be made by Indian teachers of English to train their students in proper articulation. Pronunciation is considerably variant from the native speakers and to the second language learners. Pronunciation of coat instead of cow does not damage intelligibility, but intelligibility is damaged when there is a confusion between ship and sheep. Similar pronunciations like school for school also damages and destroys intelligibility. Even within India, there are different dialects of English which cannot be mutually intelligible. So, teaching English as a second language in India should aim only at international intelligibility, which can be realized by getting rid of regional peculiarities of pronunciation, accent, and syntax, and by a sincere striving for grammatical correctness. The habitual usage of the language may stand as an impediment in the way of learning a whole new set of habits of speech while acquiring a second language. One should therefore keep in mind that each and every language has a different system, and while learning a second language or a foreign language, one has to follow the system of that particular language. The basic aim of teaching any second language is to enable the student to develop the skills of speaking, listening, reading, and writing. It is while speaking and writing that the problem of intelligibility and acceptability arises. Here too the question of pronunciation, grammar, usage and vocabulary comes in. Correctness based on internationally accepted standards cannot be ignored by us. Today in India, learning English is no longer merely political and national but scientific, technological, and international. Teachers of English should therefore undertake a task of giving a sound knowledge of English to the students, keeping in mind a radically enlarged view of the function of English in India as well as in the world today. There are 5 functions communication ought to achieve. First, the personal function of revealing oneself. Second, direct utterance in which one attempts to control the listener. Third, establishing a relationship by speaking in a ritualized way. Fourth, making a referential utterance in which information is conveyed to listeners. And the fifth is the creative use of language as in poetry, songs, etc. If an Indian student is going to use English for communication, then he must be able to achieve the competence to suit the language, listen with understanding the language of the native speakers, and then interpret them in full. In India, greater emphasis should be laid on the communication needs of the students while teaching them English as a second language. As English is used as an administrative language in India, it is necessary to teach our students English as a secondary language. Thank you.